Good morning. This is February the 21st, and the Lord has been speaking to me about the importance of me doing a very brief testimony video. I have been looking at other people's testimonies, and I had printed out testimonies that I've given out and spoken in many churches throughout the nation through the years about my testimony, but I believe that it's very important that I do this brief testimony. I also want to make sure that I want you to know that I will be leaving out some names because there are certain individuals that are still alive or family members that may be offended by my testimony, and I don't want anybody hurt over this. So I will be leaving out some names of individuals in my testimony. So I'm going to try and make this very brief as I move along. This you can look up, and you'll see that this is the heading will be paranormal, because this is about paranormal experiences. So the first thing I want to say is when I was about 2 years old, before I was two, we lived in Mishawaka. My dad, my mom, and my older sister, who was 16 years older than me. And we lived in a very little Quonset hut type house on Division Street in Mishawaka, Indiana. And my dad, through the GI Bill, was able to have a house constructed in a neighborhood, which I can't remember exactly. It was something acres, Furland Acres, or something like that. But the house is still there. It's on Darden Road, and it's off of Highway 23 in South Bend, Indiana. Actually, it's listed as Granger, Indiana. And my stepmom lives there with my stepsister, Debbie. So, consequently, the house was brand new when we moved in. And very, very early on, I began to have very weird dreams, um, horrific dreams, dreams about tornadoes, dreams about bombs. Um, and this is all while I was still in a crib. I can remember things clear back to when we lived in what I was called, it was called to me the Biddy House. I called it the Biddy House, which was on Division Street, and that was before I was two. So I still have some very, very vivid dreams of my childhood. And there were also manifestations in the mirrors, I remember, um, of women, pictures of women that were not my sister and my mother. So when I was about 4 years old, I had a great aunt and uncle that lived in Chicago, and this is on my dad's side, and this is on the German side of the family. Um, my grandmother's last name was Vogel before she got married, which means songbird. It's a Yiddish word. So there are Jewish roots on that side, but the family definitely had left Germany way before the Holocaust and so forth. So um, we would go to visit my great aunt and uncle, which was my dad's aunt and uncle in Chicago, before they moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And once when I was four, we were going by a statue in Chicago, and I pointed it out and I said very clearly, this was here when I was here. And I'll explain. a little bit more about that. Um, it was something that remained, that did not get burnt down during the Chicago fire. It was a historical monument, and I had made this statement. So, so consequently, things started really becoming more and more rapid from the time I was 4 to 6. I remember the dreams of vicious dogs being under my bed. I was plagued with nightmares, and visitations, things that I saw in my room. Lights began to turn on by themselves. Bathroom light, uh, middle bedroom light. I tried to communicate with my older sister about this, and about my fear and so forth. And when I was about 6 years old, my sister got married and moved out. So I was now left alone with my mom and dad in the house. And from that time on, because up until then, my sister used to read the Bible to me every night. She would read Bible stories to me every night. And we were going to a Presbyterian church. My dad was very good friends with the pastor. Well, some situations happened with my father and the elders, which I'm not going to go into. And my dad left the church. Along that time, the pastor also retired from that church, and they had a new pastor. So my dad refused to go back, and the paranormal things began to happen more and more frequently in the house. Um, when I was 10 years old, I remember that I had come home from Girl Scouts on a Wednesday night, and I always watched My Living Doll in the middle room where my TV and stereo was, and I had a pug puppy. And the little puppy was, it was February. I remember that. And so no windows were open in the house, and the blower to the furnace wasn't on. And Pug Puppy was in a very tall box, so he couldn't get out. And I was sitting on a twin bed in the middle bedroom watching the TV, facing the TV, which was next to the closet on one side with a bamboo curtain over it, and the doorway with the door closed. And I'm watching, and all of a sudden, it was like something had taken a hold of one of the springs underneath the bed and pulled it down very tightly and then let it go. And it poofed up underneath me. And jumped, as I jumped, I was looking straight ahead and saw the bamboo curtain slowly begin to open at a triangle angle, being pulled out as if something was trying to peer out from behind it. And then when it realized that I was looking at it, it slammed shut. I flew off the end of the bed, out the door, and ran screaming at my mother. I thought somebody had, one of my friends maybe was in the house trying to pull a prank on me, uh, or what have you. So I made my mother come in the bedroom. I made her